And the one thing that really intrigued me was like, I was thinking to myself, wow, all these shows on this television, on this box that comes into our living room, so many of them, and not one of them has anybody that looks like me
Mm.
or sounds like me or even reminds me of myself.
Funny story. And if you think it's funny, I'll put it on the podcast. But I met Edward James Olmos at a Comic Con. Did not expect him to talk to me. I thought it was going to be a quick picture. Thanks. Keep going. My voice is breaking and all that, asking me questions. And the only thing I could say was, hey, welcome back to Too Hard, Too Fast, the podcast with strong opinions about things that we may or may not know too much about in order to broaden perspectives. In today's episodes, Tuesday and Thursday, we have Vic Trevino. If you did some growing up in the 90s, you definitely know who this guy is, and we are glad to have him. Oh, man, we're ready for it.
Trevino!
Vic, thanks for joining us. So,
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course, man. Sit back, buckle up. Let's go. Too hard, too fast. Boom.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
All right, for you guys listening out there, for you guys who are just accustomed to just sitting back, kicking back, and watching things on the tube, whether it's a movie, whether it's a comedy or dramedy or whatever, and you see someone who looks like you on screen, particularly if you have brown skin, raza, cultura, Latino, that sort of thing, and you don't stop to think in terms of like, how did that happen? How did we get here? Well, stick around because I will learn you in terms of how we got there, okay? Woo! The truth about Latinos in Hollywood. Only here, Too Hard, Too Fast. Let's do it.
Podcast. Boom.
The podcast of the century.
Right. Vic, before we get started with what we want to talk about today, we ask all our guests, what are you drinking?
Well, it's a very strange, exotic concoction, guys. I just got done with my writing program, with my writing group right now. And it's just La Folgers. Nothing fancy. That's it. La Folgers. On Friday night is my writer's night. And so we're throwing around some ideas or content for this web series we're working on. And dude, I get up early in the morning. My day starts at 5, and I'm usually doing something with cardio or something with exercise. Worm, believe me, this is going to be good for you. And so,
I need that.
No, but then, the downside about that is that usually around like 8 o'clock, dude, I start feeling it, and I'm kind of like, getting sleepy because I get up so early. But when I knew this was happening, hey, dude, I made an exception.
All right.
Well, I'm glad you did. Before, actually, I got a little ahead of myself. I wanted to know what you were drinking because, this is what we do. But I should say, as you're saying, writers, I guess you're a writer as well now. I didn't know that. But I know you're an actor, a professor, a workout enthusiast. I mean, you got those guns showing. We might have to ask for a permit. We
might ask for you to take off your shirt later on too.
you and Worm might have to do a little something.
I tried taking off my shirt, and now YouTube almost banned us. So
he was showing too much nip.
Oh yeah.
So those are a few of your accolades, and I guess you can give us more of what you've done as we go on. But writing, what are you said you're writing for a web series. How hard is that?
How hard is it? Is that what you said?
It sounds hard. Like to me, hey, you knew me from college. I hated to write papers and stories and speech.
I think writing can be hard if you're writing about content or material that's not personal, that's not personally. If you don't have a personal investment in something that you're writing about, it becomes more of a chore than a passion. And I think that's where the secret lies. I think there are so many stories yet to be told about our culture, about the Latino experience. I know we'll get into more of this later, but working in the early 80s as a Latino actor, as a professional Latino actor in Hollywood, it was just mind-boggling. There's been so many changes, and a lot of the hard work that we created and we started back in the 80s paved the way for young performers who are now on the big screen and the small screen to be who they are as artists, and they can celebrate their skin color and heritage. But and I know we'll talk about this later on, but we paved the way for a lot of these artists. For example, there are times when I'm sitting back and I'm just like watching some stuff on some news shows that are coming out, on the tube or in film, and I'm like, wow, that never would have happened in 1985. That never would have happened. Wow. By virtue of the fact that, hey, I have brown skin, I have a Spanish surname, I'm Latino, and agents and managers trying to persuade you to change your last name because it is too ethnic, and I'm like, well, no, dude, that's my name, Trevino, hey, what is that? I'm like, dude, that's my name. Don't mess with the South Side.
What is that? So like, hey, me too. After I tell people, hey, my name's Joaquin. Joaquin? I just told you what it was.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, but no, I don't think that writing is necessarily hard or difficult as long as you're passionate about it. I'm working as a teacher with young people right now, and one of the things that I really hope to foster within them is a passion and an interest in storytelling. Not necessarily my stories. I'm trying to validate them so that they can understand, hey, you know what? I don't care where you're from or what color your skin is. You have something valid worth listening to, by virtue of the fact that you're human and you have a pulse. Thus, you have something to say, something that's worth listening to. And a lot of our young people, our young kids, they're very... Dude, I've taught like all age groups. If you would have told me 10 years ago that one day I would be teaching kindergarten, I would say, guys, what's in your drink? You've had too much of it. Stop already. But no.
Oh, so do I need to stop then? Or...
Just follow along, Worm. Just follow along.
Follow along.
So like, no, but even the littlest kids, when you introduce characters to them, and a lot of this stuff doesn't even exist at a public library. So what do? I make it up. I make up little characters for these little chavalos, in terms of like things that talk about self-identity, things that talk about, things that matter to them, things that are worth saying. There's so many stories yet to be told. One of the challenges that I think writers have sometimes, we can talk about this later, I'm sure, but in the 80s, we had, if you look at sitcoms that are still running, that were produced in the 80s and 90s, look at the credits, look at the last names of the people who were sitting behind those desks in those executive offices. Very few, if any of them, were Latino surnamed, because you had writers and producers and directors who were not of the culture, but were creating content for the culture to raise numbers and to raise revenue, and it wasn't until things started changing. Anyhow, that's my long-winded version of that question. Okay.
No,
I forgot the question.
I did jump the gun a little bit. I just wanted to get into the conversation, but one thing I skipped over is that we talk about our drinks. So going back to your Folgers, before, I know there's so much to talk about with your career, but your Folgers, if you were to compare Folgers, is that usually what you go for? Like if you're drinking coffee, there's another coffee like you.
No, not really. I mean, it's what I had in the house right now. But when it comes to coffee, dude, I'm like and I was never like this, guys. I was never really a coffee drinker. When I was working as a professor, and things were getting a little crazy and stuff like that and everything, with workload and I never really complained about what I did because, for those who know me, when I was at the lake at Olu, dude, I lived there because I was there early morning. I was there late night, producing shows, writing shows, directing, like that. And working out. I was at the UAC, and for those of you who are listening and don't know, the UAC was like our gym on campus, and I lived there. I really lived there, but I started drinking coffee because it was the only way of just like keeping up, so to speak. And so then I started discovering, hey, there's different kinds of coffees and stuff like that. I always thought that coffee was like for viejitos, and I thought, nah, my dad drinks coffee, I drink cerveza.
There you go.
Yeah,
and now you add some Kahlua to your coffee, right? You have Kahlua in there?
Yes. Oh my God, that's where I was going with this, Worm.
My bad, bro. I jumped the gun too. I learned that from George. I'm sorry.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Exactly. But no, I like coffee that's strong, coffee that gets me going. Otherwise, pa qué? You know what I mean? It's like, Colombia. That's the way to go. Yeah, Colombia.
So this is the first. We've never had somebody. What we do on Too Hard Too Fast is we rate our drinks from 1.0 to 2. Because Too Hard Too Fast, the number 2 is the best. So
keep going.
1.0, using the decimals, what would you rate your Folger's coffee right now?
Right now, I give it like maybe a 1.3. It's okay. It's not like anything to write home about.
Ooh, you hit it like right on the head because a 1.3 for us, it's like you drink it if you got it. That's what it means. If back in the day when you were in college or hanging out for a party, if all they have is like cheap Bud Light or even worse, Miller or what is it called, Natty Light, and that's all they have. They're at the party. And it's like, well, that's all we got. Drink it if you got it. 1.3.
Exactly. That's right.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Worm is getting a little excited. Worm, what do you got?
Right here. This is for Trevino right here, man. I just think it's straight right there.
Oh, dude. Stop teasing me like that.
Here, let me give you some right here.
Dang. That's awesome, dude.
Is it? I don't know. Some people say I have a problem.
What are you drinking,
I got
Worm?
you, man.
What's up,
What are you drinking, Worm? Yeah, what do you got?
Hey, so this is also for Trevino right here. It's hecho en Mexico. And I want you to talk about it if you know anything about los Indios, bro.
Oh, wow. That looks awesome, man. Talk to me about that.
Oh, shoot. All I know is that it tastes great. That's all I hecho en Mexico. I'm an Indio. Well, I'm a conquistador, but it's all good. Hey, very quick, Mr. Trevino. So I wanna drink some beer, right? But with COVID, I think they created a digital one. So, am I safe to take off my mask? You're healthy, right?
I'm gonna say I'm okay. Okay.
All right. Achoo. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I don't. All
right. We should correct Worm because I feel like he keeps saying Trevino. There's an Anya, Worm. Come on.
I didn't take Spanish when I was in El Paso.
I know you guys in El Paso.
They forced me to speak English.
Well, let's let the people know in El Paso that there's a correct way of speaking Spanish, and then there's an El Paso way.
Nah. Or the right way, which is the wrong way.
Have you done a rating for El Indio beer?
Yeah,
before?
I did actually. But I'm gonna tell the people again, a 1.77.
Wow. Okay.
That is high.
That's great, man.
That means if they don't
I
sell
gotta
it,
support I gotta support my people. I love the design. It tastes great. I think it's a great price. So
That's
it's
awesome.
a good score. 1.77 means if they don't sell it at your gas station, they don't sell it at your HEB, you're gonna drive to that fancy store that has it, and you're gonna buy it. So you're gonna go the extra mile for it.
Might go the extra mile.
All right. So
that's right. That's right.
I have this IPA from Mason, Ohio. So the reason I have this, Mr. I was gonna say Mr. Trevino. Oh, went back to that college life. The reason I have this is we had a guest last week. He plays for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I was told that he was sponsored by this beer, and it got shipped to me so we can review it while we were doing the podcast with him. Well, it arrived a day late and $1 short. So I brought it on for you so you can taste it on your episodes.
Awesome.
IPA is usually my favorite, so I'm glad we have that. And just because he's a guest, I'm not going to go easy on him. But Sonder Brewing Record Hop IPA. I didn't buy it, so there's no price point. I have no idea what it costs. The label is a little like I did this on Microsoft Word or Paint.
Yeah.
All right. I gotta be real.
Or just saying he could do better. That's what he's saying. He's talking crap. And then he wonders why some beer companies get mad and they say screw too hard too fast.
Hey, I gotta be real.
You know what?
Crap. Honestly, if I could do better, I would be doing better. But I'm not doing it, so they're clearly doing better.
Awesome.
All right, so a 1.68. It's really good. It's tasty. It's a 6.8% alcohol, so it's high. It's a Too Hard Too Fast beer, a 1.68. Good stuff. So let's go Too Hard Too Fast. Let's get back into the conversation, Wormsers.
Yeah. Well, first I want to know what do you usually drink though? What do you like to do? What's your favorite drink?
I like this beer called Albita. I like it because I really like beer, but because I'm running and I'm doing a lot of like fitness oriented activities, just trying to stay in shape, if I can during this whole crazy time. So I don't always have the opportunity to like eat right and stuff like that and everything. So in an effort to just kind of like help control those carbs, because I really do like beer. I really do. And Albita is really low in carbs. So I really like drinking that. Now, if it's earlier in the day, I'll try just about anything, because I really do like.
We should have started recording at 1 then.
And I prefer beer, actually. That's my drink of choice. But it's like, that's what I like.
Vita's a good beer. I like their stuff. I think it's from Louisiana. I
believe you're right.
Nice. All right, so let's get back into it. I mentioned you were an actor? How did you get into that life? Like, what led you to? Oh, actually, where did you grow up?
Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Los Angeles, in East LA, Los Angeles. Stayed there for a while. My parents moved to San Antonio when I was about, 10 or so. And then grew up on the south side. Grew up on the south side of San Antonio, and then being born and raised in East LA. Dude, when you put both of those combinations together, it's like, what's that old saying? You can move the boy out of the south side or the west side, but you cannot pull the west side or the south side out of the boy. It's always there, Grew up with south side mentality, and it's like you do what you do with what you have, that sort of thing. Years later, my folks divorced eventually, and then I ended up spending a lot of time in LA later on. Joined the military, and I loved it. I was in the Air Force for 4 years, and then I I stayed in LA to attend college, and I was really, really interested in film and television. So I had heard that the best school to go to study for that stuff was at USC, the University of Southern California. Well, dudes, that's a private university. And like very few people go there. And if you're brown, menos, even fewer brown people go there. So I was like, nah, dude, that's a long shot. And everyone said, you're crazy. Why waste your time on, because, you know, there's an application fee and blah, blah, you know, it's like $100. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to try it. And everyone was like, there's no way. And it's expensive. Yada, 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 whatever. If I listened to all the people who told me that I couldn't do something, or all the people who told me there's no way, or all the people that said no, you know, God, nothing would have happened. You know, nothing would have happened.
That's what they told me about Olu. I know what you mean.
Exactly. So one of the I applied for all kinds of scholarships, and dude, in those days, it wasn't like you could press a button on the internet to look for scholarships or submit a scholarship. This is like writing stuff by hand.
Man, that's old
on a stone tablet with a chalk. And it was just like about this was about creating a story, you know, and turning it into a script. I knew nothing about that. I knew absolutely nothing about that, but I did it anyway. And it was very crude. I wrote it in a prose kind of format, prose, Prose, as in like a story format, and then turned that into a script format. So I wrote this script about this typical Latino family. And really, I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody. It was really about my mother and my father, you know, and how me and my brother and sister interplayed with it and all of that. Actually, I don't think I've ever shared this. And so it was loosely based on that. And then it's a good thing my mother doesn't know. I can imagine the language she would use. Whatever. So anyway, so I was.
Don't hold back. Tell us.
It's okay. None of our mothers listen to this podcast either, so
yeah, I don't.
they would be saying the same thing.
Mañoso, I can hear her already. So,
¿Qué chingados es ese mugrero?
Exactly.
We're doing something good, Mom. We're doing something good.
It's like, I can hear already. Dame la chancla. Like, no.
Tráeme la chancla so I can hit you with it.
Yeah. They won't even get up. They don't even get up. It's like, bring it to me so that I can toss it at your ass.
Yeah, right. Bring the weapon to me, and I got you. I was like, okay, Mom.
Exactly.
Oh man,
that's right. I'm busy with my Miller Lite right now. Bring it to me. Okay, all right, not a problem. Anyway, so I did. I wrote this script. Didn't hear anything from the university for about 6 months. At the time, I was doing odd jobs. I was working graveyard at this. It's not even in existence anymore. It was called Thrifty Drugstore in Los Angeles. They had a chain of them, and the graveyard shift, I would assemble and disassemble racks for the new stores. And during the day at 8 o'clock, I'd start my rounds with my headshots and my resumes and going down to like the different offices, talent agencies, and dropping off, like trying to meet people, just trying to hustle, trying to drop off resumes and stuff like this and everything. I'm telling you guys, the internet did not exist. You didn't press a button and click and press send.
That's sad, man. That was wrong with you guys.
How did you guys talk? How did you guys interact?
I know. How would you text message someone?
No, but dude, I met a lot of interesting people this way. Drug addicts and other than that,
hell yeah.
Hey, some of them are really interesting as well. Hey,
so you know, I submitted the screenplay, and mind you, I had never written a screenplay in my life. This was all self-taught. I was just like, you know, I was talking to friends of mine who were already working, you know, as writers in LA. But, you know, this was during the early 90s when opportunities for people of color were very slim, even writers. So applying to film school, especially at like, you know, prestigious university like that, yeah, that probably was a long shot. But I didn't want to. I don't want to go through life thinking with anything I do. We're thinking, you know, I wish I woulda, coulda, whatever, that sort of thing. You know, no, I don't want to do that. So anyway, 6 months after I submitted that thing, I got an application from the film department, and it's extremely competitive. And so then I was invited for an interview, and I got in, and then I hustled. And I just worked my butt off just trying to get scholarships. And as I was saying earlier, you know, this wasn't about pushing a button and connecting to the internet. This was about, you know, fielding calls to people who had done this before, going out to, you know, local agencies that supported Latino artists in Los Angeles. And thankfully, at that time in Los Angeles, there was a lot of organizations that supported us. And one of the biggest ones was the Nosotros organization, you know, Nosotros, Spanish for us, you know, which was founded by, I know a lot of our listeners probably are not familiar with this name, Ricardo Montalban, who was this pioneer in establishing working relationships, particularly for Latino artists, including writers, performers, directors, things of that sort. Now, Mr. Montalban had a long, prestigious career as an actor. He was from Mexico. And if you look him up, I mean, he has a resume the size of, you know, like whatever, but he paved the way and created this organization called Nosotros to help create opportunities for artists of color. So I had approached them about, you know, just guidance and things of that sort. And they were very instrumental. I met up with some really cool people and fellow artists. Got into the college program. What's that?
This is while you were in school? While you were a student?
Yes. So I got into film school, and then I started doing stuff behind camera. And then I started doing things in front of camera as well, too. And I thought, I was like, just talking to myself. This Vato's always talking to himself. And I'm like, I have conversations with myself, and most of the time they're really good. I sang really good. Depending upon the beverage of my choice, especially when it's a 2. So I was like,
loco.
I was like, hey, I'm already here at USC, you know, so that I started applying for advanced learning opportunities in performance because, you know, deep down, I knew I always wanted to be a performer. I knew I was an artist. I knew I was a storyteller. And although USC had the #1 film school in the country at the time, UCLA had one of the top acting conservatories programs in the country in their MFA program. I also knew that it was extremely competitive. I applied to UCLA, and when the year I applied, I knew I was told in the letter that there was like 600 plus applicants and only 10 would be chosen for the MFA program. And I thought, let's do it. So I created like this monologue, this audition monologue, right? And it was like very dramatic and things of that sort. And I thought, okay, I think I got this. So I'm doing this monologue, right? And it's very dramatic. And at my third callback for this audition to get into UCLA, it was down to like maybe 20 from that 600 because what I didn't say was there was several interviews before that. So at this point, you know, there's just a couple of us left, and the director of the program looks at me and he says, "Mr. Trevino, that was very dramatic. I would like to see you do the same thing, Mr. Trevino, but only this time do it as a comedy." And for a millisecond, I froze. I was like, oh my God, híjole, how am I going to do this? You know, and I used to think how my mom could take something so serious and just make it funny to me. She didn't think it was funny. She was like serious as crap, you know, but it's the way she said things. Immediately I turned into my mom in this audition space. Right. And I did it. I got in. And so I ended up I ended up with the pedigree from USC and UCLA. I'm getting my undergrad at USC and my master's, my MFA from UCLA. And it was always kind of weird when we had football games because, you know, they're rivals. And it was always really challenging. Like, which side of the bleachers do I sit on? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Beverage of choice will determine.
So who do you like better?
I know, right? Let's not even get to football. It's like, I'm leaning towards UCLA because there were more people like me there, you know?
Okay.
I'm not knocking USC, but it's like, you know, guys, I was going to school with kids who had like Mercedes Benz and had these fancy cars and lived in these fancy apartments all around, you know? And I was like, dude,
Beverly Hills?
Dude, I was in Inglewood, and, you know, and that was my hood. I was like, and I totally felt comfortable there, you know? So, but I've never shunned away from who I am or where I come from. It's who I am, and I'm proud of it. So
at USC, were you the only minority or only Latino?
At USC? Yeah. There, at that time, there were not a lot of Latino students in my program at USC. No, not at that time. Not at that time. You know, you really had to work to get in. It was very competitive. And I think that's another thing too, Worm. It's like, you know, in those days, you know, to get into any kind of like a program like that, you had to work your butt off. You know, there was no Google. There was nothing to kind of like shortcut your way through. You know, you had to be really inventive. You had to be really creative. You know, how are you going to tell this story? How are you going to make it engaging for the audience? Things of that sort. You know, there weren't as many resources as there is now. You know, so
I was gonna say, why didn't you just YouTube it and you something that helped you?
We should just YouTube it
because
there wasn't YouTube.
So, like, one thing I wanted to ask is that kind of going back to my experience growing up as a Hispanic or Latino or anything like that from the culture, what made you feel like that you wanted to be a performer? Because obviously, at least from my experience, you know, you tell somebody, your mom, your dad, your friend, like, hey, I think I want to be an actor, or I want to be in radio, I want to be a musician, anything like that. And it's like, chale, vato, for real? Who do you think you are, man? So, like, what made you feel like, oh, I think I can do this, or I wanted to try at least?
You know, I was always surrounded by colorful characters growing up. You know, and by colorful, I mean, you know, like people who don't think that they're not trying to be funny. They're not trying to be, you know, quote unquote colorful, but they are. And in my mind, in my little boy mind, you know, when I was a kid, you know, I was just fascinated with stories. And I thought, I just grew up really believing that more than anything else, a person's story can really be like what really truly defines a person in terms of who they are, where they're coming from, things like that. You know, when I was a kid, I remember always drawing, and I thought for sure I was going to be like a graphic artist or something like that. And then I really got involved with the idea. Okay, so I used to watch television as a kid, right? And the one thing that really intrigued me was like, I was thinking to myself, wow, all these shows on this television, on this box that comes into our living room, so many of them, and not one of them has anybody that looks like me or sounds like me or even reminds me of myself. I remember watching this old sitcom called The Brady Bunch, right? And I was like, wow, that was really, really cool, you know? And I also thought that Marsha was kind of cute. And I was like, wow. Mañoso. So, and I was like, okay, you know, I like the premise and it's a great idea, you know, but there were very few shows that featured Latino talent. And then fast forward a couple of years, you know, or rewind a couple of years back, you know, there was a show called Chico and the Man. And I was really excited to check out Chico and the Man. And for our listeners who aren't familiar with that, just Google it, Chico and the Man. And you're going to see, you know, this young and up and coming actor / comic, Freddie Prinze, who I was like, oh my God, he's brown. He is brown. You know, and I was glued to the tube. I mean, the series was okay. It was all right. But what really fascinated me about this whole storyline was the fact that they cast someone with brown skin in this. It is possible, you know? And I was exactly, you know?
Puro Indio. So, oh, yeah.
Exactly. Puro Indio. So, you know, and I never let the idea of I can't do it enter my mind. You know, I wanted to believe that, you know, and that's what kept me going until, you know, when I started in the 80s and 90s in LA, dudes, it was a different landscape. It really, really was. You know, we had a lot of like, how should I say this? You know, like, let's just be honest. Most of the people that were producing, casting, and directing, you know, were like non-Latino. There were no people of color. There just was no people of color doing that. And you had a lot of people who were, you know, you had a lot of white people who were writing shows for brown people, you know. And although I appreciated the fact that, hey, you know, they're trying to include us. They're trying to give us a voice. But every time a project like that came up, every time a pilot like that came up, more often than not, it didn't go very far. Why? Because it takes someone who is Latino to write of the Latino experience, in my opinion. You know, it's
don't tell my story for me. Let me try.
Exactly. It's like you can't make this up. You can't make this up. You know, I remember my mom would see some things like that. I go, no, but shut up. Come to the channel. And that's the way it is.
Hey, so growing up, watching TV and stuff, what did you guys have back in the day? Netflix, Hulu, YouTube TV?
Oh yeah, Worm. Yeah, like we had all of that. Nah, dude. I think we had, because, you know, we didn't have cable. I didn't know that we were pobre, so we didn't have cable.
I don't mean either, man.
We had 3 channels, man. 3 channels. And it's and maybe that's why.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, exactly. I just started creating, you know, stuff for myself. Because hey, if it's not there, I'll invent it. I'll make it. Make this stuff up.
I was trying to think of like what show I watched, like the first show I watched where I was like, oh dang, somebody that looks like me. And I can't think of one, even in my age, that I can remember. Like,
I could think of the what?
I remember Freddie Prinze, but I was still too young for that. So,
yeah,
I only knew him later on. And on my end, like I grew up in a border town, so I did a lot of growing up in Mexico itself. So I knew like El Chavo del Ocho and shows like that. Those were like shows that I really grabbed onto because these characters not only look like me, they speak like me too. They speak Spanish. So that was my you know, obviously I was a big fan of Saved by the Bell. Oh, that's what AC Slater. That was the first person. Mario Lopez. I was like,
that's right.
That guy looks like me, and he's cool.
Yeah.
Dang. That's the show that and obviously Zach Morris.
I think he looks more like me, but it's like...
I think that's what it was. Once Mario Lopez came on the show, I was like, oh man, somebody that looks like me.
Yeah.
Well, he's my second. Now he's like my third cousin and stuff. So is George Lopez, and so is Jennifer Lopez.
What about you, Worm? What did show that was?
No, well, shoot. I mean, I just watched. Yeah, I mean, same thing. When I was with my grandma, I just watched a lot of Spanish shows. But I mean, I guess I never thought of it that way. I mean, I was cartoons, and then the thing I just remember was, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So that's cool. But then I was, how come there's not like a Hispanic, like Mexican thing of this? And then the only thing I could remember later on is like, I guess George Lopez created his own show, and that's really the only thing. So
and that he created a show based on what Vic was just talking about, the fact that, like, you know, other people, other cultures are trying to tell the story for our culture. And what George Lopez did is he just told his story, our story, and that's why it caught on, because, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, everything he's saying is what everybody lived through. Like right now, earlier we were talking about La Chancla. You grew up with
Yeah.
La Chancla as discipline. I grew up with La Chancla as discipline. Worm, well, I don't know what he grew up with, but
With the belt, bro. They hit me with the belt.
La faja.
Yeah.
el cinto mojado.
Yeah, always snap it and stuff. All right.
Tírame la faja.
I got it harder than you guys. Hey,
But
Mr.
also, I don't think we can go any further without mentioning the huge movie you were in, Vic Trevino, and these coming of age. I think coming of age movies for Latinos. Like obviously, we didn't grow up with, or at least I didn't. I grew up in a barrio, or I grew up in Mexico, and I knew the deal, the streets.
Right.
But I didn't grow up as the story being told in American Me, which you were one of the main characters in the movie.
From director Edward James Olmos, American Me.
And there was another movie that Worm is a big fan of, Blood In, Blood Out.
Mm-hmm.
So those two.
Oh, bro, you ruined it, bro. I was gonna say, hey, I know you're too humble to admit this, but I found something that it tells your story, your life, right here. Hollywood Presents, right here. This is based in LA. That's your story, right? It's about your life.
Well, sort of.
So I think, okay, maybe not coming up.
I have the poster. My cousin just randomly found it. I'm like, I'll take it.
But okay, that movie and American Me, it was like a rite of passage. Like if you had not watched that movie and you somehow made it into college, were you even Mexican? Were you even Hispanic? Like, what is wrong with you? How do you even know that? How did you even get here?
Exactly.
So I want to talk to you about that. Like, you were in college, you were hustling, you were working your ass off. What led up to the events of getting or being booked on a big time movie like that?
Well, a series of events happened that eventually led up to that, because that didn't happen like right away. I've been hustling, like you said, for a long time prior to that, and trying to create like a foundation of work that producers and directors, because everyone is scared in LA. Everyone is scared in Hollywood. It's all about like, oh my God, well, they always look at the last thing you did, which really used to annoy me. I'm like, or they're like, well, he's not a big enough name, or there was always something, it's like, no one knows that name, or it's hard to classify who he is. Everything from like, hey, would you consider changing your last name? No, that's my name. Okay. Would you consider changing your attitude? It's always about like, it was always
Hell
about,
no.
It was always about like, trying to change, my identity in one way or another, and I started thinking, okay, the only real way, and this is something I learned in Nosotros, for me to create something for myself is for me to create it myself instead of having other people create it for me. I started, in order to generate income as an actor in LA, what most people do is they go to, if you can work commercially, you do that, because commercials pay the bills and really well, actually, if you can lead a couple of lead commercials and stuff. And thank God, knock on wood, I was able to do that, consistently for a while, and I played all kinds of characters in commercials, like all kinds, and most of them were in Spanish. Almost everything I did in commercials were in Spanish, and I always knew when it had residuals coming, because my mom, who has always been addicted to telenovelas, told me, oh, te vi de anoche en el Miller Beer, or te vi de anoche en el Mobile, te vi de anoche, oh, thanks, Mom. She became like my surrogate manager. And so, and she wanted a cut, but I wouldn't go for it. So it was like always about, just trying to make ends meet. So eventually, the thing about getting into like mainstream feature films is about knowing people, and having a pedigree of work that speaks for you. And that's what I started out doing. When I was at film school, the contacts I made in film school, I kept throughout, and I still have those contacts. You know, it's like, hey, I need this, I need that. Can you help me with this, bro? Can you voice this commercial for me, or can you voice this animation for me? And we do that. I think one of the strongest things to come out of film school was the contacts that we created, because we're still a tight group even now, you know, and all of us are in different parts of the country. Some of us are in different parts of the world. When I was working in the Philippines or in Australia, in different countries around the world, it was like I could still rely on my resources for like, hey, bro, I need help with this, or can you help me with that? And you know, and I think that's one thing about the Latino culture, is that we're there for one another. We're there to help support and help each other grow. It's not really about, you know, like, you know, this is just for me, you know, although I have a tío that's like that. But anyway, that's an entirely different story.
We all have that one tío.
They always had that one tío. So,
and if you don't know what we're talking about, you're the one.
That's right, Jorge. That's right. That's right. And if you're listening right now, don't get me started. So by the time American Me came through, I had a little bit of a name, like that big. Okay, I was already doing Pee Wee's Playhouse and blah blah blah, and then my agent at the time, who was
you were doing Pee Wee before.
Yeah,
American?
before American Me.
I thought it was reversed.
Yeah, but it helped open some doors. So, but before all this, and a lot of people don't even know this, because a lot of the stuff went straight to video back in the days when Blockbuster was still around. You guys are probably babies, but it was like I did all these B movies, guys. And for those of you who don't know, those of you who are listening, you know, a B movie it's not a movie that you're gonna go see like at the movies. A B movie is something that goes straight to video. All right. And why do actors do B movies? To pay their pinche rent. Let's just be honest, okay? And so I did a ton of those. So by the time American Me came out, I'd already done so many different kinds of like gang-related movies, and most of them were like, oh man, forget it. You know, the storyline always bothered me, that it's like, no, that's not how we talk. That's not how we act, things of that sort. So when my agent calls me and says, hey, there's this project, it's called American Me. Eddie Olmos would like you to, Eddie Olmos is, you know, the star of that, and just an all around great human being and fellow artist. And he's like, he'd like to talk to you about one of the roles. And I was like, at the time, my agent was Chris. And I was like, dude, I'm like, no. And I hadn't even read the script or anything. I said, I'm really not interested. I said, how many gang members have I played already? I said, Chris, I have worn every color bandana that you can possibly think of already. All right. I'm done. He goes, no. He goes, at least read it. And so then I had the script, and it was in my living room table, you know, for a while. And then he calls me, goes, did you read it? I'm like, no, I haven't read it yet. He goes, read it now, because he wants to see you tomorrow.
Damn.
And so I read it and I thought, wow, it was very gritty. It was very, very gritty. And then, of course, the kitchen scene, you know, where the event happens, you know, to that one guy. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. My first thought was like, is that my character? I don't know. So eventually, I had a discussion with Mr. Olmos, and he was very frank, as he always is. And he's like, goes, I understand your concern about being involved in yet another gang drama that just, you know, stereotypes who we are as a people. He goes, this project is not about that. He goes, this project is about creating a story that is real, honest. He says, and I'm not looking to sugarcoat anything. He goes, this is going to be like up in your face reality in terms of what life is like. You know, if you choose this lifestyle, and you really wanted to make a statement, you know, particularly with our Latino youth, the gang problem in LA at that time was huge. And to some extent, it still is. And not only LA, I think in many large metropolitan cities across the country.
Yeah, definitely.
So I agreed. I agreed to do it, for reasons other than I had done other projects, because I believed in the project, and I also believed in him. And I think if it was someone else directing, I'm not really sure I would have felt that way. And one reason that I felt that way is because he fought for the performers. This was produced by Universal Studios, and I remember at the time he said, "We are going to have 10 days of rehearsal in Sacramento at Folsom State Prison, on the actual prison yard. All of the prison scenes take place in the actual prison.
But Folsom belonged to us, the oldest clique.
And there are many inmates that are real, they're not actors." And there were a lot of mishaps. There were some things that happened that we had not planned for, and that we were like, okay, we can't do that again. Things of that sort. We eventually did get the 10 days of rehearsal, and we were so grateful, because there's no way that we could have on our first day of filming been able to authenticate, our actions, our reactions in terms of our characters, in the manner in which we did, without those 10 days of just being in that environment, walking through it, and actually hanging around with these low-level trustee / prisoners, and many of them, all of them. And we had an opportunity, I had an opportunity to talk to some of these individuals, these human beings. And it's, life happens, and they all have stories, and they didn't choose that lifestyle. Some of them were, according to them, victims of circumstance. Others made poor choices. Others, it just, you really walk away from all that thinking, who the hell am I to judge?
Yeah.
I'm nobody, and they're human beings.
Almost right,
all of them.
We had a guest early on in the podcast that said, we're only 2 degrees or 2 decisions from ending up, in a bad situation where we can't come out of, or something like that. And I'm probably misquoting it, but and it's like, yeah, it was kind of basically, it could happen to anybody.
No, I totally agree with that, and I totally agree with that commentary as well too. It's a very kind of like I've never felt that way. Like, for example, I was hanging around with 2 guys, 2 inmates. I was spending some time and just trying to get into their heads and understand where they were coming from and stuff like that. And they were very free. They were very giving with sharing their histories. And some of it was really painful to listen to, but, they all had something in common. All of them had a dream. And for whatever reason, those dreams were shattered for one reason or another. All of them made choices that they regret. And all of them still had dreams of one day getting out and pursuing life in the manner in which they were accustomed to, after having kind of like learned the hard way. I told these guys, I said, hey, it was good getting to know you guys, good luck when you guys get out. And I remember there was this pause, and one of them looks at me and says, well, dude, we're not getting out, and he explained to me, that, they
their life.
They did this terrible thing over a VCR. It's like, I was like, wow. But you know what? Even after hearing that, I'm like, they're in a situation, they made some choices. Who am I to say that I would have done anything different? I don't know. It's not my place to judge. So anyway,
I just want to say to Worm, a VCR, we used to play video.
Worm is going,
where am I right now?
Worm is going, a VCR, what is that?
He's still trying to figure out what Blockbuster is.
He's still, VCR, vaya con Ricardo. I don't know. What is that?
Are those initials?
Download a picture, Gusano. Download a picture.
So the scenes in America, like where you guys are like working out in the bench, that's actual prison, or is that a set?
No, dude, that is actual prison. Yeah. All the prison scenes were like, it was like right there, you know. And it was interesting because I remember on the first day of shooting, we
Did you
are
guys have
dressed
security or at all? Or just
no, not really. Not really. There's no security. Now, the guys who were allowed to walk around had already been screened. They were quote unquote like low level. They were like trustees and stuff like that. But guys, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Stuff can happen.
Yeah.
Stuff can happen. So I remember we were shooting, and remember, we're dressed just like them, and we look just like them. Oh, I forgot to mention. So before we start on before our first day of shooting, Eddie almost says, "All right, so we have all these binders, you know, because these are based on true stories, and all these characters, they were real, you know, they were real." And we saw pictures of all these guys, and I saw pictures, a lot of pictures of the character Cheetah that I represented, and this dude had tattoos everywhere. So I was like, you know, he says you're gonna have your choice of developing your character, including the kind of artwork, body artwork that these men had.
I haven't started to kill each other yet. They're still throwing shit.
And most of them, you know, especially in the prison, they walk around, you know, without shirts, just like you, Worm.
Hell
you know,
yeah.
and so they're like,
I don't do it as often though, because
you just need to work on your strut, dude. But I can help you with that.
Thank you.
So they are,
Worm, actually, speaking of artwork, Worm does have some artwork that he likes to show. It's a bear. Worm, do you want to show the bear?
Wait. Okay. Oh, but on what part of the anatomy is this bear?
Dude, I'm gonna have to pull down my pants, turn around. Sometimes it hides in its cave, so you might not see it. Actually,
you might be in hibernation.
It might be in hibernation right now. It's winter.
Put the Indio down, Worm. Put the Indio down.
No, I can't. Heritage right here.
You guys are the artwork. What kind of artwork did you choose for yourself, or represent anything?
I had so most of us, or some of us, are like without shirts the whole time anyway, because that's just the way how these guys. And it was shot during the dead of summer, so it's like really hot anyway. I had tattoos on my chest, on my arms, on my neck. What they didn't tell you was the more tattoos you have, the earlier you have to be at makeup call every morning. And so my call was like between 5 and 6 because I had so many pinche tattoos. And I was like, oh my God. But you know what's really cool? And a lot of people don't know this. The artist, Danny, who was a tattoo artist for the film, this guy is an amazing tattoo artist. You guys should look him up on Instagram or on social media. He is amazing. He created a special kind of ink for the movie. And when the tattoo is drawn on you and the ink is applied, it looks just like a real tattoo. And with sweat, it doesn't come off. When you're showering, it doesn't come off. It lasts a really long time. And so this guy had an image when his shirt was off. You could see he had the entire Last Supper, like all across here, like all across there, the Last Supper. And it was like in detail. I was like, dude.
Like a real tattoo or
yeah, no, it was a real tattoo. That one was a real tattoo. And so I remember there was a lot of people on set trying to get him to do like their artwork. Oh, I know, Danny Romo. Yeah. So if listeners are interested in that, they can just look him up. But Danny Romo is he's a fabulous tattoo artist. His work is like, he's just amazing. And he's also just a really amazing human being. Just all together, as my father used to say, de aquella, bien de aquella, you know, look it up. Okay. So anyway.
Well, I'm looking right now at Danny Romo, his Instagram.
As a guest.
Dude, for real, his artwork is amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
we're gonna throw out your name too.
Yeah, dude. So, you know, it's the first day of filming, right? We got the tattoos on and everything. We look just like everybody else. So in this scene, this is the first day, and we're with the real, the other real, you know, inmates. And so in that first scene, there is a fight that breaks out, you know, between us, the actors, and the characters. So when that happens, when the fight breaks out, what happened was they didn't tell the guys in the gun tower. Someone failed to tell the guys in the gun tower what we would be doing. So from their perspective, it looked like a bunch of crazy inmates were getting it down and having like this riot or something, right? So all we hear is and we stop and we freeze and they call it cut, right? And so after that, every time we were rehearsing, we had to wear these bright fluorescent orange vests. And then we didn't remove the vests until we actually were filming. And then, you know, somebody had the smarts to brief them and say, "Nobody, shut up. They're just acting."
They're just pretending. It's a pretend stabbing.
Exactly. Work with me on this.
They did that on purpose. They wanted the real shooting, the real tear gas. They wanted everything legit.
Just for effect.
Yeah.
Shoot the brown people, the brown ones.
Just the brown people.
That when that movie came out, like, what did you experience? Like, did it hit big as soon as it came out, or was it like a later hit?
At the premiere, there was a lot of talk about like how much of an impact this movie was going to have, not only on the Latino community, but just, you know, the film going experience as well. It got just about all kinds of positive reviews in all of the major papers, the trade magazines in LA. What we didn't really realize at the time was just how much of an impact this film was going to have, like years later. I remember going to the Pulga, you know, the swap meet, flea market, both in LA and even here.
I know Worm just thinks it's whatever he picks out of himself.
Just follow through, Worm. Just follow through.
Yeah, I'm just going.
Yeah, and he's like, out of nowhere, you know, you have like these young kids, a whole new generation that are like, you know, watching the movie, listening to the story, you know. So it's like, it's just kind of wild. It just blows my imagination in terms of how much of an impact this continues to have. My one concern, though, was like, I remember in LA when the movie first came out, and a lot of the young kids, you know, were really infatuated with this movie. And my concern was, well, wait a minute, are they infatuated because you know, they think it's cool? Because that's not the message we wanted to create. You know, did we blow it big time or whatever? And I remember we were talking at a middle school one day, and one kid says, it's really cool to see people like us on the big screen. He goes, and it's not that we think gangs are cool. We think it's cool that there's people up there telling our story. And then I felt kind of like a relief, sort of. I was like, okay, then, you know, in one way or another, I think we've made an impact, and we've been, you know, I think we did good in terms of telling the story. Unfortunately, during the telling of this story, there were a lot of people that were hurt with this story. We had several people who were working as consultants to give us like firsthand information in terms of, you know, how does this work? Remember, this is based on true life events, and it's based on, you know, the prison gangs at that time. And these individuals were cautioned and warned and threatened by this organization, and they were told in no uncertain terms, you know, don't do that, stop doing that. And these people were like, you know, and they were awesome. These people were awesome. They were just really, really cool people, really cool human beings, you know, and they believed in this story. They understood why we were telling it. And that's why they chose to share personal information. Two of these people are no longer with us. They were literally gunned down for sharing this information. I remember I was at a red light. I was stopped. I was on La Brea Boulevard in Los Angeles, and the movie had already been out for a while, and I was heading towards an audition. The movie was already out, and there were some talk and threats of people being threatened and harmed who were involved with the movie, especially by anti-gang rivals who were really upset that we had told that story and that we had shared some information in the story. And I'm at this red light and I'm waiting for the light to change, and I'm just focused on my audition and getting there, blah, blah, blah. And this car comes up, and it's right next to me. And I don't look at the car or the driver, but I hear him gunning, the pedal. And I kind of look to the side and I see this guy, it's kind of like a lowrider. He's got his hair slicked back. He's got like a little hairnet thing on and everything. And he doesn't say anything, but he looks at me and he does like one of these. You get like I know you guys can't see this for those of you who are listening, but it's kind of like a stare, a pause, and a slight like upward nod without breaking the gaze, without breaking the line, and for those of you who know the street and know the South Side or the West Side, you know what that means. You know what that means. You don't need words, And so then I thought to myself, okay, I knew that I already knew what was going down with the movie. We had already lost a couple of people, and this guy looks at me, and then he finally says, "Hey, you were an American me, weren't you?" And I'm thinking to myself, I could run the red light, but I'm not sure my car would outrun his. Or just say the truth. I chose to just say the truth. And he stares at me for what felt like the longest time. And finally he yells out, dude, that movie was kick ass. The light turns green and he takes off. And I'm there still just kind of like hiding my sweat. And I was like,
man, that's crazy. Because even then, like you describing that moment of like that slow, like, when it's friendly and it's so weird, like, people at least for what I think, raza, like, like that head nod, like that exactly. Upward quick one is like, oh, we're cool. That quick one. That's right. That slow one is like, oh.
And
I think something's going to go down. Yeah.
It's all in the timing. It's all in the timing. And you're right. I'm like, okay, there's some crap that's going to go down here.
Yeah, you're describing that. Dance. And I never even knew that. Like, I didn't know, like, people got hurt. Honestly, I don't think I probably heard somewhere that it was based on true stories. But I guess by the time I saw it, obviously in 1992, I was not old enough to watch the movie. So I saw it later on. But I didn't know that. I just thought it was like a story being told, just a work of fiction that was relatable. And maybe not in the sense of like, I didn't grow up as hardcore like that. But I did have friends that grew up hardcore like that. Or I heard stories of friends that, had different situations. So it was relatable because I saw it around.
Yeah, for sure.
But to me, it was like a fantasy. And also, my dad was a police officer, so I've heard stories from the jail and from the prisons and all that, and the warnings. So, again, relatable. But I didn't ever knew like people got hurt from it, and I knew there was some controversy, but I never dug into like why the controversy was there. And I always thought like, like movies like that and movies like Blood In, Blood Out, which were super cool stories. I always wanted, like, it glamorized to me the gang, you know, like, or that culture. Not only like it glamorized a lot of, or it showed a lot of our like the quinceañera, the wedding that was showcased in American Me. Like that's true stuff. Like we have those fiestas all the time, you know. So
Exactly.
or you know the things that we dealt with, like in Blood In Blood Out, the three guys that just want to be cool and they start a little gang and it blows up into like this big old thing. I I think all of that was like, you know, things that happen in our culture that's being told. But then, like you said, it had to be very cautionary in how you say, hey, it's not about glamorizing.
That's right.
It's a, you know, a cautionary tale about what is going on and how we should move. And it's our story. How do we progress?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's about learning from the experience and learning from history and things of that sort. And I think that's one thing that I really try to impress upon our young people, our younger generation of storytellers, in terms of that particular story, you know, while at the same time trying to empower and motivate them to tell their own stories, because we have a whole new generation of storytellers that are coming into play now, which is really, really cool. It's cool to see that, you know, when you have young kids, whether it's in elementary or middle school, you know, and I love working with these kids because they have not yet been tainted by all of these societal norms, by all of the things that society says or shuns, you know, us to talk about and things of that sort. You know, kids in elementary, the kids in middle school, you know, they write from the heart. And I think sometimes as adults, we forget that. And I think sometimes we're too concerned with what are people going to think? Are they going to like this story? Is this story going to sell? Am I going to make money with that? Instead of just like, hey, write what moves you. And these younger kids, that's how they approach their writing process. They write what they know. And I thought, how smart is that? Absolutely. For example, you know, we were studying, a lot of these kids, you know, are really interested in different kinds of stories. And dude, I love Shakespeare. And these kids shun away from it. They're like, oh, I don't know. That's the dude that speaks funny, right? He talks really funny. I'm like, yeah, he does. But hey, you know, so I introduce them to Shakespeare, and I'll tell them what they really like, because I introduce them how to insult other people using Shakespearean lexicon. They love that part of the lesson. So hang around, Worm. I'm going to show you too.
All right, show me, man. I want a lesson. People want a lesson. We want this.
You know.
All right, 2H2Fers, I think this is where we're going to pause the conversation for part one. Remember, part two is on Thursday, so stick around for part two. We're going Too Hard, Too Fast with Vic Trevino. Hey, hashtag Hispanics in Hollywood. We should make it a thing. Right. Or Latinos in La La Land. Ooh. See what I come up with? Right. Hey, we're going to continue the conversation. Vic Trevino's story, what we're kind of seeing in Hollywood or even in any industry right now for people of color and the progression. If you're not of color, hang out with us anyways. We would love to have you.
Cool.
We're not trying to change minds. We're only broadening perspectives. And with that said, Worm, what are you going to say?
Nosotros somos locos.
But with that said, another podcast down the drain. We'll see you guys for part two. Bye.
See you guys.
Funny story. And if you think it's funny, I'll put it on the podcast. But I met Edward James Olmos at a Comic-Con. Did not expect him to talk to me. I thought it was going to be a quick picture. Thanks. You know, keep going. But it's a picture, and he starts talking to me, asking me where I'm from, you know, getting to know me in a sense. And I'm just like shaking. I'm like, dude, I look up to you because, like, you know, you're one of the people that you're a hero almost, you know?
Right.
And so I'm like talking to him, and I'm like, my voice is breaking and all that, asking me questions. And the only thing I could say was, I know Vic Trevino. That's all I could say. He's asking me where I'm from, what I do, all this stuff. And I'm so nervous. I go, I know Vic Trevino. And so this was like very fresh from my wedding. Like I had just gotten married. And so I still had the photo on Facebook. I still have it on Facebook, but it's like freshly posted of us. You took a picture with me at my wedding and we're in suits and all looking good and whatever. And I go, see? And he goes, oh, man. And he had great things to say about you. Like, you know, he really was like, oh, he's a great guy. But
oh, my God.
In my head, I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Why is this happening?
And you know, and I can just imagine this whole story. And by the way, Jorge, you're fully redeemed now for bringing my name up in front of him. You're fully redeemed. Okay, I think I now appreciate you as a student. Okay, but so like, I can see, you know, Eddie's expression as you're explaining this. I can see like the subtle low back expression, which really is just like so much in terms of who he is. Like, for example, I remember one day we were shooting, we were leaving the prison. We were on the van on the way back to the hotel in Sacramento. And me and Little Puppet were always joking around. We were always joking around. I mean, we were never serious, you know? And so I remember at one point we were joking around in the van and we're tired. We'd been filming for 16 hours and we're tired, you know? And at some point, Little Puppet tried to like, you know, we were always like making fun of each other. And he says, yeah, oh yeah, man, you're cool. And just out of nowhere, I said, no, he said, I'm cool. And just out of nowhere, I said, yeah, you're so cool. I'm going to call you Culo, you know? And so then, and Eddie's in the front seat. He's in the passenger seat. And without even smiling or laughing, he turns around. I like it. Use it tomorrow. And it was like, and we used it in the movie.
Charlie, say, be cool, man. Be cool. I don't need to be cool. ¿Sabes qué? I'm married now. Órale. You're cool. You're so cool, I'm gonna call you Culo.
And that just came out of nowhere. So like every time I hear that line in the movie, it takes me back to the day when me and Danny were just like messing around in the van and just like, you're so cool, I'm gonna call you Culo, you know? And I think that would make a great shirt, right?
That would be a good shirt. Or now
yeah, we're gonna steal that.
But I just remember him like, even after all that, he goes, "It's okay, mijo, you can calm down. I'm just another guy." I'm just another
yes.
You know,
that. Jorge's like this.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my God!
There's a photo of me with them, and I was like, my eyes are closed like this. I was like, I couldn't even take a good photo. I was like, dang it! The only time I get to meet him, and I mess up.